everyone. Thank you for joining us. This is Michelle Rich, Network Coordinator of the Iowa After School Alliance. It looks like most of you know me, and I'm very excited for you all to join us here today. Today we have Michelle Covey of St. Mark Community Center in Dubuque presenting on sustainability and diversification of funding, so it should be a great and very interesting presentation today. Thank you, Michelle, for providing this presentation. I just want to let you know how valuable I think these webinars are and how much information the Iowa After School Alliance and the Department of Education is also collecting from these webinars and our site visits as well. Just a few updates for you all, a few dates that I'd like you to be aware of. You all know of the March 28th meeting. Be sure to put that on your schedule and let me know who will be attending from your program. That's going to be in the Des Moines area, most likely. And we don't have a lot of details yet, but the agenda and some of the details of the meeting are being finalized as we speak. So that will be March 28th, and it's an all-grantee meeting. So hopefully we'll have representation from each of the grantees there. Also, another date that we have just finalized, on February 23rd, Barb Winters of Allamakee Community Connections and Jan Mitchell, her third-party evaluator, will be presenting on evaluation best practice. And that should be a very interesting session, and so I want you all to be aware very early of that date. Of course, like these webinars, we'll be recording them for access at a later time, but it's always good to be there in person on the webinar to ask those questions that you might have.
Is it the 23rd of Thursday?
Yes.
So you're doing it on a Thursday instead of Tuesday then?
Yes. So this won't be our regular best practice webinar. This is a special webinar just on evaluation. We figured this would be probably a good topic that people would be interested in, so we wanted to create a different opportunity for folks to get that information. Yeah, that's a good question. So I want to hand it over to Michelle from Dubuque, and I'll let Michelle go into detail as to what her position is at Dubuque and some of the activities that they've been doing. But I think when we went on a site visit to Dubuque, and we were very impressed by St. Mark Community Center's efforts at building their funding diversity and looking to sustainability of their 21st century program. So of course, identifying that as an area of best practice, we asked them to provide you information about what they're doing. And of course, I think it always helps to hear from other programs what they're doing, but I think it's always going to look a little bit different in your own programs, of course. So this is purely information sharing, and if there are some items for additional follow-up, yeah, we'll take that into consideration here, and hopefully we can develop some good resources on this topic for you. So Michelle, if you would like to go ahead, I'll sit back and learn as well.
Okay. St. Mark Community Center has been active in our community for about 20 years. I am currently serving as the chair of the Board of Trustees and kind of as an acting interim director as well. Our director left in November, and we have hired a new executive director, and she was here for 2 weeks before she left on a pre-planned vacation to visit her in-laws in South America. So I am once again sitting in for Tara and develop this for you, and I hope that we can learn a lot together. We are an educational institution. We have 5 before-school programs, 3 after-school programs, and a summer school program that runs for 5 weeks during the summer. We have K through 5th grade, program structure is a little bit different perhaps than some people do, because we split our K through 3 program into the Kids Connection program. We split the 4th and 5th graders off and have a program more geared to prepare them for middle school. We were founded in 1989. The first program started with less than 20 students, and we're now up to 250 students a year. We are currently only in our downtown school, but we do have schools in the rest of the city asking for our programming. I'd like to talk a little bit about our support base. We have over 350 organizations that support us. Those can be churches, businesses of just about every size. We have IBM here in Dubuque. We have Prudential in Dubuque, McGraw-Hill. Those are some of our larger corporate sponsors. We have sororities and fraternities from the local colleges. We have 3 large universities in Dubuque. We have social and service clubs, state teachers, Toma, retired teachers. There's a lot of those. We also have a community foundation through which we get both direct gifts and an endowment fund that we get a portion of every year. We send out 3 appeals a year. One is our Christmas appeal. The other is Apples for Students, and that's a specific program that we collect money and school supplies for children of all of the schools in the city and even some of the surrounding towns. We have a lot of schools right across the river in East Dubuque, Illinois, and we also open this program up to them. And one of the things that we're going to be doing soon is what we're calling our Come Back to St. Mark's campaign. And what we're looking to do is target those donors who really haven't supported us in the last 5 years or so, but had been supportive prior to that, find out why we're missing them and try to get them back in our support base. We have other sources like our summer program sponsorships. We have people that we determined it's $75 for summer program for each child, and we put out a kind of an appeal that says, hey, will you sponsor a kid? And we sponsor probably half of the kids in the program during the summer. Our Jingle Bell Hop is really more of a community project. It's a big party out at our fairgrounds for the kids. We have Santa there, we have raffles. It brings in just a couple $1,000, but it's a great way to get our name out in the community. This year we have 922 kids attend with their parents. It's crazy. We have an annual luncheon we do every year. It is turning into a gala. We decided to try our luck with moving it to a little bit more formal evening event and see if that is something we'd like to continue doing. That's coming up March 29th. And we have an ice golf event that we took over last year. The event has been held for 9 years now, but we just took it over as our fundraiser last year. And you literally do play ice golf on the ice in a marina, shooting through the docks and things, but you play with a tennis ball instead of a golf ball. And it's just a whole lot of fun. That brings us about $15,000 a year.
Hi, I'm Troy Rabbit. I'm the Marketing and Development Director here at St. Mark's as well. And I'm just sitting in on this webinar. I'm new to the organization, but I think one thing you'll find when you look at our support base is there's a lot of diversity. We have a very robust donor base in the sense that we're an older organization, one of the first community centers that developed in downtown Dubuque. But for those of you that might be familiar with Dubuque, you'll know that there's a lot of really great organizations here and a lot of people sort of vying for donor support, whether it's through attendance at an event or through just simply like mailer solicitations during Christmas. So one of the things that I think you'll see when you look at our support base and our events is that we try to do a little bit of a variety. For example, ice golf draws in a lot of folks, but some people aren't necessarily comfortable with golf or they don't want to be outside in the cold. To them, that might not be their idea of fun. So a gala is a little bit more of a way to sort of draw in those people. But we welcome all of our donor base, and I think that's one thing. I came from another organization, which I worked in development in, here in Dubuque as well, and that's one thing that you see is it's really important to create diversity in the different events you're offering, as well as the appeals that you're doing. So we try to really do that and try to do it strategically as well. So I think that's why you'll see, although you'll see a consistency, you'll see a little bit of variety in what we're doing as well.
Hey, you guys wouldn't have some temples we could get some in, I could see you there.
We also have other grants that we receive. Obviously, we receive the 21st Century, but the Prudential Foundation has been very generous with grants for us. It's a great association. We apply every year to their grant, and we've gotten it for many, many years. It has supplied things like copiers. We just last year got an 18-laptop computer lab, 6 computer lab for each of the 3 schools we're in the afternoon programs for, and a lot of others. We actually have a grant writer on staff part-time, and she just does a wonderful job of looking for grants. Our community foundation has a huge database with grants, and Ellen's down there all the time looking for anything new that might have come in. We also have a huge cadre of volunteers. Like I said, we have 3 colleges and a community college here, and we recruit heavily from service clubs and classes at the colleges, and have over 120 volunteers every semester from the colleges. And now, how did we do all of this? We have done recently quite a bit of staff restructuring. Formerly the executive director, the 2 program coordinators, 1 VISTA volunteer, and a few board members did all of the fundraising for the organization. But in recent years, we've been adding staff so that it takes some of the burden off of the rest of the staff. We improved a marketing and development position in 2006, and that kind of changed in scope over the years. It started out as a fundraising professional, then it went to a marketing and development professional, and now it's more development and marketing is the secondary part of it. That's Troy. In 2008, we added Ellen part-time as a grant writer, and she is still with us. And just this year in November, we added a part-time events coordinator, and she is the one that is responsible for setting up all the Jingle Bell Hop, the gala, the ice golf. She's very busy right now because those all happen one right behind the other. But we created it as a very flexible kind of position so that she can take her summer off if she wants to and only work during the busy times of the year. You know, we are kind of exploring this position, but it seems to be working out real well for both of us. I want to talk a little bit more in depth on the marketing and development. One of the things that has happened through the years is as people come and go, our logo changes, our ending changes, and we really would like to establish a recognizable brand that we take on as our permanent brand. And Karen Tickey did a lot of that when she was here, and Troy's going to continue along those lines, making sure that our branding is completely consistent on everything that we put out to the community. They're also very important in developing and maintaining relationships, not only with the individuals, but especially with our business partnerships. Our director just doesn't have time to be doing that, so this marketing professional is extremely important in being kind of a face of St. Mark's with the community. Troy will be consulting with people to guide them in their philanthropic goals. We'd like to really focus on our mission when we go out and talk to people so that they understand that, you know, our heart is in programs with kids. And that seems to be one of the things that we've identified as a main source of our support in the community is people really believe in our mission. He also advertises, informs donors about estate planning. That's kind of a new direction that we want to go in. And gets additional funds by matching gifts from eligible companies. When he first came in here, he told us about a website where you can go and find out any company that does matching, even for folks that are retired, which we really were unaware of.
And I think if your organizations are looking at going for a little bit more of a serious direction when it comes to fundraising or development, it is really important to kind of make that a priority, which seems like an obvious statement, but there's a lot of small areas that really play into the profession. Ultimately, what you're doing as a development agent is helping people realize how they want their money to work. You should never tell someone, this is what we're going to do with your money, this is how your money's going to be used. You work with them to decide how they want it to be used. Now, 9 times out of 10, if they take an appointment with you and if they're willing to meet with you face-to-face, take a phone conversation with you, they're willing to give. They just want to know what their options are. So when it comes to estate planning, that's something where we really want to be able to help people, sort of realize that vision, even if they're not able to do it while they're living. If they know they want to put St. Mark's Community Center in their estate, we want to make sure that we document that in a way that not only lets them feel that sense of contribution, but also lets us prepare for if and when that gift comes in, because our ultimate goal is to realize their desire to give. In addition, if any of your organizations are looking at doing capital campaigns, this is a real loose rule of thumb. I'm sure it would be specific, something you'd want to work out with your board of trustees, but estate gifts could potentially count towards capital campaign gifts if those documenting are above the age of 70. Now again, that's, as I said, a loose rule. Every board could decide something different. It depends how long your campaign's going to be, how much your campaign's going to be. But there's a lot of different aspects that go into that. And one thing, as Michelle had briefly touched on, we're really looking at trying to get people committed for more than just 1 year. So we're trying to explore the options, and this was my predecessor, Karen Tickey, had started this as well, is just exploring the options of business partners doing multi-year pledges. This is not only great for your organization because you can count on that money coming in each year, but it also gives that business an opportunity to be involved in your community. So when you're doing fundraising, you really want to sell your organization. You want to say how you're tied to the community, what you're doing to help the community, because people want to be on board with that. Specifically, businesses want to be on board with that. So those are just a few things to keep in mind, but there's a lot of great professional development that's available. There's a lot of information that you kind of just come upon when you're in relationships with people and when you're out in front of people. But the most important thing is you got to be out seeing people. Now we have a couple of events back to back, and I oversee our event coordinator, so I'm working pretty closely with her on those. But come April, May, June, I'm really going to be out kind of getting in front of people, introducing myself to people, and I'll certainly have an opportunity to do that at our events. But to develop more that one-on-one personal relationship is really key as well.
Okay, so you pretty much, we do have a separate software program. It GiftWorks, I don't know if any of you are using that or not, but it is a donor database tracking software, allows us to really keep track of just about every aspect. It's not as complicated as programs like Razor's Edge. It's very user-friendly and a lot less expensive, but I'm finding that it does everything I need to do and then some. So between Troy and the director, they will be utilizing that database to track donors and make decisions about development and those kinds of things. We kind of touched on the events coordinator already. She organizes 5 major events in the year, and she's part-time, very, very flexible, frees up a lot of hours for the development director and the staff and the executive director. And she also has a large role to play in keeping St. Mark's visible in the community. Our VISTA volunteer recruits and supervises all of the volunteers that want into our programs. She also, again, building community relationships is vital for her, especially those relationships, keeping the good feelings between the colleges and St. Mark's. We felt that the best candidate for this role requires good organizational skills and a good knowledge of community. And we're thinking that this may be a paid position in the future for us because we're on our second year of having a VISTA doing this particular job, and we're told that we might be able to do this for one more year, and then we would have to utilize VISTA in a different capacity in the organization. So, we're looking at possibly becoming a paid position in the future. Now, the salaries for these people really paid for themselves because of the increase in gifts and funds that we're able to bring in because we are diversifying our staff work, and they have the time to go out, they have the time to build relationships for us, and although the board did deliberate a lot about adding these 3 people, it's probably one of the best they ever made. And that's all I have. Are there any questions?
I had one question, Mrs. Barr. The direct gift to the Community Foundation, could you tell me more about that?
Some people, and I'm not sure why, I don't understand the Community Foundation that well, but some people choose to make their gift through the Community Foundation and they send us a check directly from the Community Foundation identifying the donor so that, of course, we can send a thank you to them. Others, we get an email from the Community Foundation informing us that people have given donations to the endowment fund for St. Mark's. But we are only, I believe it's 5% of the endowment fund is all we can utilize during any given fiscal year.
And some of that is a personal choice on the part of the donor. Just in regards to tax rates, they wouldn't receive a double tax credit for that. For example, if they make a gift to the Community Foundation, which in turn comes to us, there's only one tax deduction that they get, so it kind of depends on how they want that tax deduction to be realized, essentially. They could certainly make a direct gift to St. Mark's, and they would still receive a tax credit, since we're a 501c3 organization, as I'm sure all of you are. However, when they make a gift to the Community Foundation, they still receive that tax credit, but they don't receive an additional tax credit when it comes to us. So for some people, it's just an easier way for them to distribute their money, charitable organizations in the community, through a lump sum, and let the Community Foundation kind of manage that lump sum how they want to see. Then they don't have, reminders coming in their mail in March and in June and in May about this organization wanting money or that organization wanting money. It really kind of helps them just plan out a little more, and sort of, I would say, probably just take the stress out of giving to multiple organizations, because they can just give one gift, and then that organization will manage the gifts going out to the
Thank you.
Yeah, I think this is Michelle. I think the connection to the Community Foundation is especially important since a few of you might be 501c3s, but some of you I know are in schools. So looking to the Community Foundation at the state level, I've actually met with the Community Foundation directors, I guess you could say, and I know that those directors at least are interested in hearing from after-school programs about, potentially making that connection for donations. So I think it's worth your while to make that connection and develop a relationship with your Community Foundation. I think when Troy and Michelle are talking about branding, that's really important when you're going to a Community Foundation, because it helps you rise above some of the competing interests that a Community Foundation is going to be balancing. Since they are community-wide, they have a lot of different interests. But I know that education and out-of-school time programming are on their radar. So it's definitely worth your while to approach the community foundation in your area.
And Michelle, just to add to that a little bit too, as Michelle Covey had mentioned, and you had just reiterated, the branding is really important because, especially for those of you that rely on grant funding, as we all know, the government funds getting tighter and tighter, a lot of people are starting to partner on grants. And anything to do with kids and community is a big draw for a lot of other people who are writing those same grants. So sort of the trend you're seeing in grant writing now is a lot of organizations coupling together and developing these consortiumship grants that are going to benefit both organizations. But from what I've seen, anything that draws on young people, education, or community is really, really enticing for other people that are competing for those grants. So it's pretty easy to find partners for grants. So that's, again, where branding can come in. If you can get your message out, and if you have a capable grant writer, it definitely makes sort of a huge dent when it comes to your revenue, because you can do a lot of fundraising through grants.
This is Michelle. I have a question for you guys. Given that a lot of folks with 21st century programs do wear a lot of hats, so some are program coordinators and also might have to lend a hand in program during the day. I'm wondering if you have any pieces of advice for folks that are doing multiple jobs at once. If there are some easy things that can be done right away, or I know you've talked about branding as being really critical. I think that's a good point. Is there anything else that's really absolutely critical for folks who have limited time?
Well, there's a few things that we've been kind of thinking about. We do have program coordinators who wind up having to go out and teach program after school because somebody calls in sick or, things like that. And we were just talking yesterday about approaching some of the colleges and forming relationships with the education department and seeing if we can build up a sub-list, so to speak, for parents in the program. Because last night I was out teaching program and both of our coordinators were out teaching program. 3 people called in sick, we have to be out there. And it's inconvenient, you don't get your job done, and, just makes for a long day. So we're going to try seeing if we can't build a sub-list from our educational departments at the high school or at the colleges.
And a lot of it is definitely planning before, as Michelle said. If we can plan this relationship building with the colleges into what we're trying to do in programs, it's going to make that situation where 3 people call in sick at the same time a lot less stressful. But what I can see from my time here at St. Mark's is it's really important just to be flexible. For example, attitude is really everything, as I'm sure all of you know, working with young people and after-school programs is there are times where you kind of do have to drop everything to go out and cover. And I think having a good attitude about that and being prepared to have a good attitude about that are things that are, you can't buy. So you want to be able to stress that to anybody that's coming into those programs, whether they're coming in as teachers, as paras, as subs. Just the ability to maintain some flexibility is really, really important. Because, you never know if it's a snow day and then 2 people call in sick. There's almost everything that could go wrong goes wrong. So if you can send someone else a good attitude, it's going to keep that program strong for the students that are involved in it too.
One of the other things, too, that I really encourage people to do is find some good, reliable volunteers that they can call on to help with little projects around the offices. Give you a prime example. 5 years ago or so, Sister approached me, and I was a board member, and she approached me with this GiftWorks software and said, can you check it out and see what you think of it? And I said, sure. So I downloaded it at home and I played with it. They give you a day free trial, so I played around with it and found out that it was pretty user-friendly. And came back and said, I think it's a good program if you're thinking about purchasing it. Well, I not only did it didn't stop there. I also came in because I have a lot of computer knowledge and exported all of her databases from Microsoft Works into Excel, cleaned them up, and pulled them and imported them into GiftWorks, and I've maintained GiftWorks ever since. And that's a big volunteer responsibility. It doesn't have to be that big. We've got, for example, one of our program coordinators has probably 2 to 3 times the number of kids in her programs as the other one does. We're looking for a volunteer just to come in and help her with the mundane attendance recording and that sort of thing, so that frees her time up to do the lesson plans that she needs to do. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so you have volunteers, well, you have a pool of people that are interested in your programming and have expressed interest in supporting it. And there are some that, some folks that might have money to donate, and then others might have time to donate to small tasks like that.
Correct. We have one gal that she's a telemarketer. She loves the telephone. If we have a lot of people that we need to call, we call her in and say, we write her a script, and she just sits on the phone for us.
That's a really nice resource to have.
Yeah.
Wow.
Good one, yeah.
Sure, yes. I have a question about your messages to donors. What are some of those cases that you make for your programming?
I think one thing that we definitely try to do is we try to keep it about the programming, because that's the most important feature of St. Mark, is that we offer good programming to great kids. And we really want to keep that in the forefront of our donors' minds when we're asking for gifts. You see that message delivered pretty consistently, whether it's a Christmas appeal, whether it's an invite to an event. And as Michelle had mentioned, one thing we're going to try new, probably later this spring or early summer, is we're going to try a comeback appeal. We're in a town, Dubuque has about 65,000 people, I believe, roughly. But there's a lot of, as I said, really great organizations here. So there's a lot of people vying for that charitable donation from folks. And as you do some changeover, and as Michelle had mentioned, updating a database to a more current format is going to help us understand who we sort of have lost in the last several years, and just reacquaint ourselves with them. And from my previous development experience, you can re-engage somebody because they're not necessarily just committed to the individual. A big part of the reason that people give is because they get the individual attention from someone, but people are usually committed to the organization and their mission. So we really want to kind of find those people, deliver that same message about why their funding is important to our programs. But I think it's also important for us to acknowledge the fact that somewhere along the line they've gotten lost. And it might be their own choice. A lot of people want to opt out, from charitable giving if their retirement account took a hit a couple of years ago. But for us, it's addressing the issue that they haven't given and inviting them to give again. And from my experience in development, people will give. A lot of people just want to be asked. And they might not give you what you asked for, but they'll give you something. As Michelle said, if you can't give a cash or gift donation, people will say, well, I can't do that, but I'd love to sub for your after-school program. Or, I have a background in IT. I would love to come down and link up your printers on the network. So there's a lot of people that are willing to be a part of the organization, but can't necessarily always be at the level that they're asked to, but they still want to be asked to be a part of it. So that's, I think, the biggest thing is keeping our mission in front of people, but never being afraid to actually make an ask. So one of the things we're going to be doing on our branding and in our new marketing campaign is every piece that we put out is going to have an option for information on how to make a gift to St. Mark. whether it's an online gift, whether it's the address they can send in a check, there's always going to be that opportunity for them to be able to make a gift. With the exception of a couple of pieces, we do want to say thank you to people, and I think that's important to steward your donor base. You can't just ask and ask and ask for money. There needs to be a little cultivation and a little relationship building, because people want to be thanked and they want to be acknowledged, and they want to have those things in a lot of different ways. So one event we're kind of exploring, it's still in the very kind of stages, is a sort of thank you gathering in the summer months when there's not a lot of other stuff going on for folks in the later part of the summer. Just to say thanks for their support to St. Mark's and share with them different things that are going to be happening throughout the year, and to tell them collectively how they can be a part of helping us live out that mission.
Thanks. I have one more question. If there aren't any questions from anyone else on, I'll wait a moment.
Actually, this is Shirley Keenan. I have a question. You have first of all, how fortunate you are to have, all those resources like the 3 colleges and the number of private industries. That's most enviable. I have a question regarding, you have a lot of volunteers. How do you screen your volunteers and you do a background check on them? Is that what you do?
Absolutely. Audra goes out to all of the colleges at some point, and actually at several points during the year as the needs arise, and she has them all come in individually for an interview, just like you would for a hiring process. And then we do a background check on every single one of them, just like we would our employees.
Okay. Thank you.
There's been a request for a sample letter asking for donations. Is that something that you guys could share?
Sure.
That'd be great.
Our most recent is our Christmas appeal. Michelle, if I email that to you, can you get that out for me?
Absolutely, that'd be great. Thank you. That would be very helpful.
Okay, not a problem. The other thing that I thought about, as Troy was talking, he mentioned IT. We try to very carefully build our board so that we can call on our board members as volunteers as well. We have my vice chair who is in IT at John Deere, and he set up our entire network for our computers. And he comes in and he does all the backups and, helps us out with when the server goes down. I can call him and he can talk me through how to get it back up and running. We have an electrician who we just recently needed to add 2 extra stations for the computer network, and he came in one day and he pulled all of the Cat5 wires and, got things going in that respect so that we could add the computer stations on. We have a banker who serves as our treasurer. We have the most valuable one in this past few months has been one of our board members owns a staffing service. And when we were hiring the director and development director, she screened all of the applicants, sent us a summary of each of those applicants along with their resumes, and half of our work was done. It would have taken us much longer to get those people hired if it weren't for this particular board member. One of our other board members came in and just helped out in the office as much as she could. So having strategic people, another board member owns, is a vice president for Tyson Supply. If we need a truck to haul stuff somewhere, we just give him a call, he sends a truck and a driver. And none of it costs us a dime.
And I think Michelle's making some great points. I came from an organization that was quite a bit larger and had a larger board, but I have never seen a more involved board than I have at St. Mark's. I mean, my first couple of weeks here, there's board members that are introducing themselves to you while they're setting up IT networks, while they're moving tables, and there really is a strategy involved. So regardless of where your organization is, or if there's, 3 colleges or things like that. I think really being aware of what your organization's needs are, and then kind of trying to develop that board from there. Now, from a development standpoint, being the development director, I probably wouldn't be doing my job justice if I didn't talk about possibly considering an expectation of giving as well from your board member. One thing that St. Mark's has done is really sort of set the bar high. There's an expectation not only to be an active member of the organization, but also to contribute. We don't have a set amount, which I think is probably the way to go for smaller organizations. You can't set up, you need to give at least $5,000 a year because you're going to lose people. But you can set up that mindset for them to say, we do expect you to give, and we expect you to encourage other people to give, because, these are people that are involved in our community, they're out in our community, and their words carry a lot of weight. So if they're actively giving to the organization and actively being involved in it, they're going to better serve as role models for other people when they're out in the community and in their other capacities or vocations.
For those programs that aren't 501c3s themselves and so don't operate under a board of directors, this might be a good example of how you can take your advisory group for your 21st Century Grant and turn it into something that is functioning at a little higher level. And, traditionally for advisory groups, we think of the usual suspects, but I think in this case, it probably wouldn't hurt to include a member of the community that is really interested in your programming. And they might just carry a background in finance where they might be able to offer those kinds of services to you. So I think that's a good example of how you can utilize higher level folks in your programming. Any other questions? I'm wondering if you guys can talk a little bit more about your sponsorships. You said you appealed for sponsorships for your summer programming?
Yeah, that is. It's not really a formal appeal. Sister started it a few years back, and we have people that will actually call us and say, hey, I've sponsored 2 or 3 kids in the past. I'd like to do it again.
And how does that work? How does that process work?
Well, our summer program is $15 per child per day, and that works out, or per week, I'm sorry, and that works out to $75 for the 5 weeks. So we just, a sponsorship is $75. I had one lady who's a teacher at one of the high schools come in over Christmas time and say, I'd like to sponsor 2 students as a gift to my sisters. Came in and wrote me a check for $150.
And again, that's where your relationship with the community comes in, because we don't do like a formal mail out asking for people to sponsor. We are exploring that option for our gala, just instead of doing like a live auction for baskets of prizes, doing more of a service auction, allowing people to sponsor students. So it's something that's sort of already out in the community. It's been out there for a while. So people are really receptive, and their timing on it is actually perfect. So there's not a formal solicit that we've done for that, but it's a great idea for a formal solicit, because I'm sure it would bring in even more folks as well. But there's just a great community awareness about it too, which is rare, but is a great blessing for us.
And we don't want to go too far with that one because we are limited to about 60 kids in the summer program.
That's a good point. There's a question about what kind of paperwork you use for the sponsorship. So how do you track those sorts of donations?
Actually, we track it through our donor database.
Okay.
We set up a campaign for it. So if I want to see how many people sponsored a child for the summer camp, I just, create a report and it gives it to me.
And I suppose that that software also provides receipts or a proof of sponsorship or something like that?
Yeah, I write all my letters out of that program.
Great. So you just send them a confirmation letter about the sponsorship?
Yeah, a thank you letter that also has a receipt at the bottom.
Oh, great. Well, I think that has a lot of potential for programs that know the amount it costs per student, and I think that's a really easy ask, I think, for programs that don't necessarily right now have a lot of the more sophisticated appeal processes and campaigns. And what was the program again that you use for tracking the donations?
GiftWorks.
Say that again?
GiftWorks.
GiftWorks. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And I can try to find a link online for that.
If you go to missionresearch.com.
Okay. I can put that up on the wiki as well. Do you ever ask for donations from your volunteers? I know it sounds like you have a lot of volunteers. Is that a donor base for you as well?
Actually, I'm thinking most of the folks that volunteer here do so because they were originally donors.
Okay, so it's the other way around.
Yeah,
Your donors, your cash donors, are volunteers.
turn into volunteers sometimes.
And as a plug for that too, I mean, it is sometimes difficult to get volunteers to think about giving if they're, for example, a high school or college age student who's just helping with the program. But if you can encourage them and explain to them why it's important to make a gift, even, I mean, any gift, because if you can illustrate a higher percentage of participation in your organization, including volunteers, when you're writing grants and things like that, it can be remarkable. If you, for example, if you have like an 85 to 95% participation rate at your organization, when they're reviewing those things, it's going to look really favorable. But it can be difficult depending on how you originally get those volunteers in the door. As Michelle said, if they're coming in as donors, they're already kind of engaged philanthropically. But if they're coming in as volunteers strictly, it's sort of a different ballgame because you really have to consider, okay, what's their age, what's their primary motivation for getting involved, and things like that.
And a lot of them are broke college students.
That's a good point. You have to understand your target audience, their target market.
Right.
Any other questions from those on the webinar today? Well, I want to thank Michelle and Troy for being on today. I think a lot of good information has been shared, and I have a few items for follow-up, including the letter, which Michelle will email, and I'll get that up on the wiki for everybody. A link to the GiftWorks information, and a few other pieces of information that I think might be helpful from what we've talked about today. So